Hello, my name is Yassine Oladoud, and I am presenting on behalf of myself and my partner Nicholas. This presentation is on Romanian syntax. The sentences we analyze for this project come mostly from two texts, which are both guides to Romanian grammar for language learners. The first is a course in contemporary Romanian, an introduction into the study of Romanian, and the second is Romanian grammar. The software we used to create our syntax tree diagrams was by Miles Shang, called Syntax Tree Generator. For the first part, we will be talking about phrase structure grammar. The basic word order of Romanian is subject, verb, object. Here we see an example in which the subject is implied. Cumpara un tablu vechi. I buy an old painting. In this example, the subject, I, the first person singular, is implied by the conjugation of the verb, cumpara. In another example, we see the subject explicitly appearing. Eu mi-am găsit dicționarul. I have found my dictionary. In this sentence, eu is the word for the first person singular nominative subject. As we can see from this transitive verb sentence, the subject comes first, followed by the verb, followed by the object, dictionary. Now we will be discussing 6 different types of sentences in Romanian. The first contains a transitive verb. They brought the suitcases of 15 tourists. Here, the transitive verb adus, bring, takes the object suitcases, valizele. The second kind of sentence is a sentential complement verb sentence. In this sentence structure, a verb phrase is formed by placing a verb that takes a sentential complement followed by a sentence. The doctor asked me if I had taken any more doctors. The verb m-a întrebat, meaning to ask, takes the sentence if I had more doctors. Dacă am mai luat doctorii. Here we would like to show how a verb phrase can take an adverb in Romanian. The gentle cat scratches badly. The verb zgaria scratch takes the adverb adjunct rau, which means badly. In this example, we have another verb phrase that contains an adverb adjunct, as well as a noun phrase that contains a determiner. Maria looked very closely at the trains entering the station. The verb look, uita, takes 2 adverbs, foarte atent, very closely. The noun phrase that contains a determiner is la trenurile, the trains. Now we have an example of a prepositional phrase being adjunct to a verb phrase. We have 2 friends in the hotel. In hotel avem doi prieteni. The verb to have, avem, takes the prepositional phrase in hotel. This is also an example of topicalization movement. We can see in this syntax tree the original structure of the sentence. The prepositional phrase precedes the verb phrase. However, we can rearrange it to correspond more closely with how English grammar works. The subject is implied, noi, avem doi prieteni in hotel. In a more English way to structure the sentence, in hotel would follow the verb phrase. However, we see that in Romanian, the prepositional phrase can precede the verb phrase. Here we have an example in which a prepositional phrase is adjunct to a noun. The second work was a history of the Romanian struggles under Michael the Brave. The noun istorie, meaning history, is combined with a prepositional phrase of the Romanian struggles under Michael the Brave. This entire part of the sentence forms a prepositional phrase which is adjunct to the noun istorie. Now we will be discussing 7 different phrase structure rules with which we have analyzed Romanian syntax. The first is a verb phrase that takes a transitive verb. In this first example, the doctor asked me, doctorul m-a întrebat. The noun phrase comes before the transitive verb. Doctorul comes before m-a întrebat, which is the transitive verb. However, the transitive verb can also precede the noun phrase in the verb phrase. In this example, cumpara un tablu vechi, buy an old painting. The noun phrase un tablu comes after the transitive verb, cumpara. Here we have an example in which a verb phrase can take an entire sentence as an argument. Gregory knew that the old man was eager to find out what he had done in Bucharest. The verb stia, knew, takes this sentence as its argument. Typically, the sentence follows the verb. In this example, we show how adverbs can be adjoined to verb phrases. Maria looked very closely at the trains entering the station. Here we see this example again to show that this phrase structure is recursive. The verb se uita takes the first adverb to form a verb phrase, se uita foarte, and then that verb phrase takes another adverb, atent, se uita foarte atent, looked very closely. In this example, we show two different ways in which verb phrases can be adjoined to prepositional phrases. In the first, the verb phrase precedes the prepositional phrase. Citi prieteni aveti in hotel. How many friends do you have in the hotel? However, it is perfectly fine to form the sentence so that the prepositional phrase precedes the verb phrase. In hotel avem doi prieteni. In this particular example, the topicalization movement emphasizes the location of the action in response to a question. Citi prieteni aveti in hotel? In hotel avem doi prieteni. Sentences can be formed by either placing the noun phrase in front of a verb phrase or by placing a verb phrase in front of a noun phrase. The first example is more typical. Pisica blandas garierau. The gentle cat scratches badly. However, it is also perfectly fine to form it so that the verb phrase precedes the noun phrase. Pe masa e o lampa. On the table is a lamp. Again, we see this topicalization movement emphasizing the location in which the action is taking place. Noun phrases can be formed by combining a noun with a determiner in Romanian in two different ways. An interesting aspect of Romanian is that while it normally has definite articles that act as free morphemes, there's also a concatenated determiner which can be which can be adjoined to a verb as a suffix to indicate definiteness. In the first example, we have vad băiatul, I see the boy. The definite article the is a suffix adjoined to the noun boy. In the second example, we see what is more typical of Romance languages, that the definite article is a free morpheme that precedes the verb. Maria looked very closely at the trains entering the station. The noun phrase la trenurile, the trains, contains the definite article as a free morpheme determiner preceding the noun. And lastly, we show how nouns can take prepositional phrases with the following rule. That a noun is composed of a noun plus a prepositional phrase. O istoria a luptelor Romanilor sub Mihati Viteazu. The history of the Romanian struggles under Michael the Brave. This is also a recursive structure in that multiple prepositional phrases can be added onto a noun. Now we'll be discussing typology in Romanian syntax. Romanian is a mixed-headed language. Here we see an example in which the head is actually placed in the middle of the phrase. Cumpăra un tablu vechi. Buy an old painting. The head of the noun phrase is tablu, the noun for painting, but it is placed in the middle of a phrase. The adjunction rules we see at play here are a noun phrase being composed of a determiner an and a noun painting, and then a noun composed of a noun plus an adjective, old painting, tablu vechi. The head can also be placed at the beginning of the phrase. Maria looked very closely at the trains entering the station. Maria se uita foarte atent. The head of the verb phrase is se uita, the verb for looked, which is at the beginning of the phrase. Lastly, we will be talking about case patterns in Romanian. The morphosyntactic alignment of Romanian is nominative and accusative. This means that the nominative case nouns, which are the subject of an intransitive verb sentence and a transitive verb sentence, are aligned or are the same. The objects, which are typically in the accusative case, are rather conjugated and do not appear as the same form as their nominative case. In this first sentence, we have an intransitive verb, stau. The subject, eu, I, is the same as eu as the subject of a transitive verb sentence. Now we propose a couple of case rules, which illustrate case patterns in Romanian. In the first case rule, we see that a nominative case subject can be applied by the verb. Am citit un articol. I read an article. The noun I, which is the nominative singular subject of the sentence, is implied in the conjugation of the verb have. We create a rule in which the case of the verb implies the subject. Nominative case is implied by this verb. We propose another case rule which looks at the placement of the nominative case and the accusative case in the sentence. In this sentence, eu mi-am găsit dicționarul. I have found my dictionary. So we say that a nominative case occurs on the noun phrase below the sentence. Our second rule accounts for the placement of the object. The accusative case occurs on the noun phrase complement of the verb. And that concludes our brief analysis of Romanian syntax. We hope that this presentation has been both enjoyable and informative. Thank you.